We, though, have been lucky, and our caller was pretty lucky, apparently, Michael, because he has been able to grow up in an era with a semblance of freedom because, of course, we've been fighting all these wars in the Middle East. And how did I gain this incredible wisdom? Well, from Brian Kilmeade.
Oh, he's a
Friends.
Middle East scholar, right?
Yeah.
Michael, I'll tell you, just a real quick point for people who say that we're just a police force. Have there been hits on our country since 9/11 from that region? The answer is no, because of the great work people like you did over there on a regular basis, giving a whole generation a chance to grow up with some semblance of freedom so they can make their own choices.
No, that's absolutely right, Brian. And look at what happened when ISIS was flourishing and inspiring attacks all over the earth in the United States. And then when the president came in and said enough, destroyed the caliphate, They're on their back foot. And as long as those leaders are worried about missiles coming through their window at night, they're not plotting and planning against the United States. It's the same thing in Afghanistan. And unfortunately, I think that's going to be the case for the foreseeable future with a small presence. We're not talking hundreds of thousands of boots, small amount of special forces to fight forward on offense, not defense.
We've been fighting them over there. So we don't have to fight them here. Trillions
Could you imagine?
Hundreds of thousands of lives, millions of refugees, destabilized the entire region, and we haven't had another attack that killed 3,000 people. Oh, incidentally, for the past 6 weeks, we've lost, 2 months, we've lost 100,000.
Lost 100,000, and that's just, a bummer, and we should get back to cutting hair. But I think that, and also stabilized all sorts of, really parasitic and dysfunctional relationships between United States and Afghanistan and Pakistan that go back to the 80s that helped set all of this stuff in motion to begin with.
We've just reset the clock. And the idea that we have a semblance of freedom, I will remind people that the semblance of freedom is we have less freedom if you want to measure it in terms of civil liberties.
Well, that's what I wanted to say.
Verge of reauthorizing all sorts of surveillance laws that are winding their way through the House as we speak.
If after September 11th there was actually this is catastrophic, it's horrible, we're never going to allow this to happen again. We understand that there's an appetite for revenge and bloodlust and all the rest, but this just isn't how these things are dealt with. It might be not as emotionally satisfying, but we're going to actually take care of it. There's going to be arrests, apprehension, intelligence, targeting, all the rest of it. Not only, that could have set the trajectory in a completely different direction, obviously, but it's incredible to say on publicly that wars in the Middle East that have cost millions of lives, to the extent there has been any democratic progress in the Middle East, it's because of uprisings that have unfortunately mostly failed, but they were mostly organic uprisings starting several years later, frankly delayed by U.S. aggression in the Middle East. And then, at home, what have we had? Nothing but a steady and terrifying erosion of civil liberties for decades now.
Yeah, and how much of this primes the pump for, allowing that vented release of, bloodlust towards China when this is all over, really?
One wonders.
Well, China's the thing now. Terrorism's played out. Nobody cares. ISIS was the last hurrah. And so now the new game is China.
The boogeymen have a half-life. I noticed this back, in the early 90s when it was Gaddafi, and then it was Saddam, and then it just sort of dances around as to who the boogeyman is.